I know. And I like the
love this. All right, folks, welcome aboard here, Sports Talk Nation. And yes, it is the start of the 2023 NFL season. It has finally arrived. And if you're a Jets fan, you're a Giants fan even, you can get excited. All the excitement that has been building up over the last, I would say 6 months or so, it's finally coming to a head as we're going to finally see Aaron Rodgers in the flesh for real now in real games against starting on Monday against the Bills. The Giants, of course, trying to reclaim their momentum, if you will, from last season, at least the start of last season when they're 6-1. So we'll see how it all plays out. Joining us today is from the Bump and Run podcast. That is Pete Callesano. I was happy to join him and Scott Bracey last week for a similar discussion, and now he's going to join me here this week here on our channel. So, Pete, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. I have to say, the excitement is there for me as well. You know, when I was younger, I think a lot of people when they were younger, your birthday was that day of the year that you look forward to the most. But I just turned 50 in July, so I'm certainly not looking forward to birthdays anymore. The start of football season has taken that over by far. So absolutely excited. We got the first game tonight, so always looking forward to it.
To me, I think that we should have a constitutional amendment and change New Year's Day to September 5th or something like that. That should be the official start of New Year's. Like when football starts, that's New Year's. That's it.
That's it. It's when the New Year starts. So I agree with you totally. That and the day after the Super Bowl should absolutely be a holiday at this point. We know it's the number one most taken day off of the year, so let's just go with it. It's Martin Luther King Day. It's President's Day. I don't know how you want to do it, and I don't really care. Let's just make it happen.
I just heard a thunder crack outside where I am, so I guess God is saying, okay, we're going to make this on New Year's now.
He agrees.
We'll see. Speaking of that, let's start it off here with the Jets as they get ready for this season. I mean, we all know what happened this offseason. Aaron Rodgers comes in.
Of course.
All the hype, all the expectations that have been flowered on the Jets here, Super Bowl, playoffs. Let's for lack of a better phrase, cool our own Jets here and just take this one thing at a time here. What are your expectations for this season? Because for me, I'm thinking it's not Super Bowl or bust. It's be competitive, try to win this division, get into the playoffs, make some noise, upset some people, and go from there. Because I think they really like this kind of hated underdog role that they've kind of grabbed onto here in training camp.
Yeah, let's try to be realistic, but also optimistic. Okay, yeah. So realistically, if you look at the AFC, there's easily 10 teams that you can look at and say they should make the playoffs. Okay, legitimately should make the playoffs. And there's only 7 spots. So there's going to be some teams that are regarded as very good teams that are going to be left on the outside. So your expectations should be to make the playoffs. I think they're a good enough team to make the playoffs. They were 7-3 at one point last year with Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco as their quarterbacks. So with Aaron Rodgers, you should at least win 3 more games. And that's the other side of it. Let's say they go 10-7. You could go 10-7 and miss the playoffs. Should you be disappointed as a fan if that happens? I suppose you could be disappointed, but this idea or this narrative that I've seen on television and with these kind of crazy people that, put these things out like it's Super Bowl or bust, that's absurd. It's Super Bowl or bust over Kansas City, over Cincinnati, over Buffalo, over teams who have proven to be at least capable of going to an AFC championship game. That seems crazy. Do I think there's the possibility of that? Absolutely. You have an all-time quarterback. You have a defense that's top 5 that looks even better. A good running game, and maybe, just maybe, the offensive line will hold together. Garrett Wilson, Mecole Hardman. There's a lot to be excited about. There's injuries. There's all kinds of things. I'm with you. Pump the brakes just a little. Expect a good season. I always say, other than a couple teams, what do you really want? You want to know that you have a chance to win every game. You're not going to win every game, but you just, as a fan, you want to wake up on Sunday morning and man, we got a chance to beat Kansas City today. And I truly believe the Jets and Jets fans will wake up every Sunday at least thinking that we might win today. And that hasn't been the case for a very long time.
It has been the case for a long time, and I think they got a great shot even this week on Monday.
Absolutely.
I mean, the stuff that's going on with Buffalo, no Micah Hyde, no Von Miller, that just makes it, I'm not going to say easier, but it certainly makes the path to victory a little more possible against such a good opponent as the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and they struggled. Buffalo struggled last year against the Jets. The Von Miller thing to me is the biggest part.
Yeah.
You got Aaron Rodgers working with these guys for the first time in a live game. If Von Miller was there, I'm not loving that. You know what I mean? Like, he's an older quarterback. We saw this with Tom Brady. We saw it with Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers. We did see it in a little bit in the preseason. They get older. They don't want to get hit, and I don't blame them. So you take that out of the equation. He must be thrilled, and it just changed the landscape. You saw that last year as Buffalo season went on and Von Miller got hurt. It changed everything. They weren't the same team on defense. So that's a huge thing for sure. And then the other thing is Leslie Frazier isn't there this year. And now their head coach is acting as their defense coordinator, and that takes his attention away from the rest of the team. I think that's a big deal. I think that can, especially early in the season, that can play in the Jets' favor here.
It really could. And I think offensive line is going to be the biggest key for the Jets season.
No
Dwayne
doubt.
Brown at left tackle, 39-year-old. I've said to other friends, 39-year-old left tackle protecting a 39-year-old quarterback. We'll see how that works out. And then you have Mekhi Becton being the other big story on the right side. I mean, he looked like he was solidifying that position in preseason, but that's, preseason is one thing over regular season, so we'll see how that goes. But to me, those two spots, the entire offensive line, how it gels, how it protects Aaron Rodgers, how it creates opportunities in the passing game, even on the ground as well, is really going to determine this season for the Jets. We can sit here and talk about age of the quarterback or turnovers or how the defense is going to play. We know the Jets defense is going to be very good this year. If this offensive line is giving up pressures and sacks and forcing big bad throws, I don't care who the quarterback is, it's going to be a problem.
That's a fact. And really what we're talking about is health.
Yeah.
In the little bit that we've seen Mekhi Becton play, I don't just mean this year, since he's been a pro, when he's on the field, he's pretty darn good. Like, he's a pretty darn good tackle. He's a big dude in the running game. He's a mauler. He loves to get after it. The question is, of course, can he play a full season? Can he play a whole game? I don't even know if he could do that. So that is a huge if. Dwayne Brown, I actually have a little more confidence there. He played most of the second half of last season with a messed up shoulder. He fought through it, didn't do it very well, but he did it. Presumably that's fixed. So, hopefully, my point with that is more like, it's not a leg issue. It's not like he can't stand up on two legs. It's his shoulder. Whereas with Mekhi Becton, it's the knee. So if at all that gets solidified, then you can really start to, if it's game 4, game 5, game 6, and we still have our two starting tackles in that position, could start to get a little excited, I think.
You could get a little excited. One thing that's going to be fun to watch this year, I think, is going to be the chemistry between Rodgers and the receiving core. Obviously, I've had debates with people, should the Jets go out there and get another receiver? They're certainly going to kick the can. They've tried, looked at Kenny Golladay. Maybe they'll look at Julio Jones, maybe even Mike Evans with his, contract situation. Of course, there's always Devontae Adams out there. But right now, you look at that Jet receiving core. You got Garrett Wilson. You got to love the chemistry that he and Rodgers have right now.
Of course.
I love the fact that you have two veteran guys in Lazard and Cobb. You could talk about age as much as you want with Cobb, but the fact that those two guys are here adds to Rodgers' comfort level. Garrett Wilson being the professional that he is and how Rodgers has taken to him and taken him under his wing, man, that's going to be fun to watch this year. I can't wait to see those two connect.
And what's so cool is if you've watched Hard Knocks or any of the videos that have been out there, you see Garrett Wilson is like a sponge.
Yeah.
Like, he's just sitting here. The constant conversations with Aaron Rodgers, wants to learn, wants to be the best possible pro he can be. I love seeing that kind of attitude out of young players, like willing to put that kind of work in. I will tell you this, where that's something I think that people haven't thought about too much because it hasn't been there in the past, but I think that's because of who the quarterbacks were. I think the tight ends are going to play a much bigger factor this season than they have in the past. TJ Uzoma and I'm forgetting the other
Tyler Conklin.
I think, especially Conklin, I think he's a much better tight end than he gets credit for because of who was throwing to him last year. So you know, if there's anything that Aaron Rodgers really specializes in is throwing over, middle linebackers down the seam in between linebackers and safeties. He's fantastic at that. I think Conklin and Uzomah, I think it's a better situation than people realize just because you haven't seen that here in a long time.
Yeah.
So I think that can help a lot.
Oh, yeah. And another thing I really liked from what I've seen, not just on Hard Knocks, but just overall throughout the offseason has been the perception about Aaron Rodgers was that he was a very selfish guy when he was in Green Bay. And whether that may be true or not, who knows? But that was the perception nationally, and even the way he, would talk to the media up there in Green Bay. But here, he's just accepted this different kind of role, and he's become almost a different person in a lot of ways. A much better teammate, very open to working with guys and working with players like Zach Wilson. I mean, has this impressed you? Because I know you've been critical of him in the past with the way he was in Green Bay.
Yeah, anybody who's listened to our podcast before knows that I have shredded him for 3 years, and not because of his ability or his talent or how good he is, but because he just doesn't seem like the best teammate. Like, we see him call out players, but it's always like this passive aggressive way. Like, he doesn't actually say anybody by name, but you kind of know who he's talking about, but you always got to work around it. He's always just seems so coy, and you never know where he's at, to the point of where in the offseason, when they were talking about bringing him in, I was a no. Like, I'm like, I'd rather have David Carr. I swear, I'd rather maybe make a trade for Lamar Jackson. I just didn't want that chaos. It never goes well. And if you look how last season went after such a strange offseason around Rodgers, I didn't want that. I felt like the Jets are moving in the right direction. I didn't want the chaos. Boy, was I wrong. And you know what? It might just come down to guy gets a fresh start in a new place, young guys around him. He sees a new role. I mean, Aaron Rodgers didn't ever seem like the kind of guy to bring the young guys along. Boy, he looks like he's a coach on the field. Like, the coaching staff has said as much, that like sometimes we're talking and we stop and he just picks up and takes over. So Robert Saleh said that multiple times. That's exciting to me. So I think part of it is fresh start, new environment. I think part of it is he looks around, he says, this is a good friggin' team. Like, this is a pretty damn good team. And, it's pretty exciting to see what we can do. So
it's better than the team he had in Green Bay the last couple of years, especially.
Absolutely.
I think when he was watching guys like Quinn Williams and Quincy Williams tear apart his Green Bay offense last year, he was like, damn, that's pretty good.
Exactly.
Those guys are pretty good. So, I mean, that defense is going to be, again, this goes right to the defense. To me, if the Jets are going to get off to a good start, and that first half schedule is brutal, we're not going to.
Yes.
It's if they start. I mean, 3-3 in a normal circumstance would be great. Considering those first 6 games. But that defense, if they're going to do 3-3 or better, is going to have to win some of those games, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody talks about that defensive front, which is really good. But I try to talk more from the back end forward. Yeah. You have 2 corners. Obviously Sauce Gardner, but a lot of times DJ Reed gets forgotten because Sauce Gardner's on the other side. If you look at PFF rankings, Pro Football Focus, like they have both of those guys ranked in a top 10 in the league. When you have 2 corners like that can pretty much shut down 2 receivers, boy, your pass rush ends up looking a lot better. And the best part of that is you don't have to blitz as much because these guys are giving you time to get to the quarterback. But then on top of it, we have guys that can actually get to the quarterback. So it's really fun. Safety wise, we've talked about this before. Like, I don't know, but I don't know that safety is the spot that you're most concerned about. Sooner or later, somewhere along the line, you have to save a couple bucks and not spend a lot of money on certain guys. But boy, when you got 2 lockdown corners like that really put pressure, it's really exciting. It gives defensive coordinators so many options on what they can do up front, whether it's just send 4 or do all kinds of blitzes, because you're covered behind that. It's a big deal. It makes a big deal. And then the other side, as a head coach, you go into every game knowing that you're going to be in the game because your defense is not going to be giving up 35, 40 points.
I look at this team overall. I guess my overall expectation is for this team to make the playoffs. And again, this kind of goes back to what we talked about at the start. And I've heard a lot of people in the media kind of start to rip this team and say that, hey, they're getting too much coverage or they're getting too much attention. or that they wanted to be on Hard Knocks, and they talk about, of course, DJ Reed's comments about being like the '85 Bears. To me, I kind of like a little bit of the swagger, and the Hard
Absolutely.
Knocks thing really wasn't the Jets' choice. The NFL kind of forced them into it. Say, hey,
Yeah, they didn't want it.
watch
They
you in
didn't
because
want it. Yeah.
yeah. But to me, I think the Jets are kind of running with this idea of it's us against the world, and Robert Saleh's been running with that, and you can see that in Hard Knocks. I love it. I think it's perfect for the persona of this team.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. It's that, and I like him in that role. He's that kind of. I felt like the first year of Robert Saleh, he was trying to be way more, professorial. Well, I think what we thought we were getting from San Fran was that emotional guy on the sideline that really motivated the hell out of his players. Didn't really see that. We started to see that last year a little bit. I'm hoping to see more of that because I think that's what the players really respond to. I think the other thing that can be underrated is Nathaniel Hackett for two reasons. Number one, he has an already set relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Aaron Rodgers is comfortable with him. He knows the terminology, all that stuff, which is great. So there's that camaraderie that's already built in that you don't have to worry about developing from scratch. The other thing is, any of these coaches or players, when they get to this level, they have expectations of themselves. Nathaniel Hackett failed miserably last year. I really believe that you have a guy here who's, severely intent on proving people wrong, that he's a good coach. He knows what he's doing. He certainly knows what he's doing in the offensive side of the ball. So I think he's pretty motivated to do a good job this year as well, which is always good, which is a good thing.
I know I went on your podcast last week. I said that I could see them being a 10-win team this year. And I think that's 10 to 11 wins is kind of being fair. How do you see them winning or finishing this season, and where do you see them finishing this season?
Yeah, I've been kind of set on 11 wins. Maybe that's a little optimistic. I don't know. I think that's kind of fair. To your point, yeah, the front half of the schedule is a little, heavier, a little more difficult. But we said that same thing last year. I remember sitting on my podcast and saying, there's a good chance that, people saying there's a good chance the Jets are going to start 0-8 this year. Oh, they really got it. And they started off 7-3. And at one point they were 4-1. Like, I don't know how that works. It's the NFL. These games are all really tough. I know that momentum matters. I know that if they can get some momentum and they're feeling good about themselves, they can get excited. And I also think there are some issues with Buffalo that there's the possibility that they could take a step back. So I wouldn't say they're going to dethrone Buffalo, but they could. So I think 11 wins is very reasonable as a fan to say, I would like to get 11 wins. I think that's fair. And if you get 11, I think you're in.
Oh, yeah. I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility. I mean, and look, I'm not saying Kansas City is going to get dethroned this year. I still have to win the Super Bowl again, but, no Chris Jones from maybe half the season with his holdout.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce, who knows with the knee, how long he's going to be out. Anything could happen. Injuries happen. And that's just
keep in mind, there's only been one team in the last, 20, 30 years that's repeated. It might be more than 30 years is the Patriots with Tom Brady. So, it's really hard. Winning in this league is really, really hard. So, teams are going to lose, injuries happen. So we'll see. Things can break their way. Listen, we've had things not go our way for quite a long time. You and I spoke about, what year was it? With Testaverde, blowing out his Achilles in the first series. I was like, season's over. So things happen all the time. Maybe this year things finally break our way. It's possible. And this team is certainly talented to go to the Super Bowl. They're talented enough to go to the Super Bowl. Will they? I don't know. I'm certainly going to root for it. I'll tell you that much.
We'll see. I mean, I'm more in the wait and see mode. Let's just get them.
You have to
see what happens, and that's all you can do. Quickly on the Giants. To me, it's which Giants team is going to show up. I mean, it's kind of like the playoffs, right? We're going to see the Giants team that ran over Minnesota in the wild card game. Or we're going to see the Giants team that got blasted by Philadelphia, and that kind of leads me to this about Brian Daboll. I think Brian Daboll is a good coach.
Yeah.
But I hear people in the New York market and even on national, from the national standpoint, put Brian Daboll right up there with Belichick and Mike Tomlin, and that's just not fair to him, and it's just way too soon. I agree. It's
not fair, and it's also not fair because this roster isn't there yet.
Yeah.
You still don't really have a number one receiver. I'm not even sure that any of their guys would be like a true number two on most teams in the league or any of the successful teams in the league. We're not we don't know what we're going to get out of Daniel Jones. I know he got a lot of money, but let's not forget he threw 15 touchdown passes last year. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like he threw 30 or 35. Like, he wasn't the most productive. On the optimistic side, listen, he was significantly better in the last half dozen games than he was the rest of the season. So maybe there's something to be said that Dable's going to open it up a little more now. He trusts him a little more. Daniel Jones has reeled in the turnovers so they can cut him loose a little bit. He's certainly a big, strong, smart, athletic guy. I just don't know, you could say Darren Waller, but he hasn't been healthy for 2-3 years now. So, but I love having him there. If he's healthy, that's huge. Something to take a little attention away from Saquon Barkley. But I think I like Dable. I do think he's a good coach, but, I don't think all the pieces are there yet to just say, he's a genius and he's going to take them.
Yeah, and I think he and Joe Shane have a plan. Dable and Joe Shane have a plan, and I think it's going to work for them eventually. I just think that there's still another year away.
Easily,
hey, look, I say that, and it could be like 2007, the Giants go on a huge run, and they surprise all of us. But I got to see it from guys like Isaiah Hodgins. I got to see it from Jalen Hyatt, who they drafted high in the second round. They drafted a kid high, I think was first round to be their new center. So we got to see how he plays in his first year. So they, to me, have a lot of questions. I have questions about Saquon, now technically in the contract year, trying to
such a strange situation. Yeah.
Strange situation there. And I just want to see, can the Giants open it up more offensively? Can they be a little more dynamic? Can we see more than just Daniel Jones taking off and running all over the field? I mean, I know he's fast, but a 6'6" quarterback, I don't want to see running around the field from the head coach of the Giants.
Yeah, I think what happened last year too was the Giants really snuck up on a lot of people, especially in the first half of the season. On our podcast each week, we're like, well, they played good last week, but this is the week that they're really going to lay an egg. And they didn't for a while. And then they kind of did. Then they had a stretch near the end of the season where they weren't playing so hot, but still got in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I think they snuck up on a lot of people last year. They won't this year. They made the playoffs. They beat the Vikings. They are now a target on people's schedules as they're looking through their schedule. This is not a team they're overlooking anymore. I do think the best thing that has happened to them is that Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets. The Jets are on Hard Knocks. All the news, all the eyes and ears are on the Jets. And it will be for at least the first half of the season as well. It'll draw a little attention away from what's going on that in that locker room. So that, I think that helps. And especially if they're still, trying to, release the reins a little bit on Daniel Jones, this just gives them an opportunity to slow that down a little bit too. But listen, look at them right out of the box. You got to play the Dallas Cowboys. There's no rest in this league, man. I mean, there's very few teams that you look and you say, well, this team is bad. They're going to lose every week. There's very few teams like that. So, and they're certainly not starting off with one of those games.
Yeah, and then they get San Francisco 2 weeks after that. So those corners that the Giants have are going to get tested right away. That's another thing if that's going to be to watch for them. Let's just pivot here and let's kind of make some projections. Just who are going to be our playoff teams and who's going to win divisions. So I'll kick it off. AFC, until I see it happen, and even though we spoke highly of the Jets and concerns with the Bills, I'll stick with the Bills to win this division, although I think it's going to be very close with the Jets all year. Yeah. You just got to go with the more experienced team right there for right now anyway, more, team that's been together. So stay with the Bills for now to win the AFC East. I got the Jets as a wild card team, possibly as a number 5 seed. In the North, I think this division's wild. I mean, it's the Bengals are the team to beat in the division, but with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, I don't know what to expect with those two teams. Man, they both should be playoff teams, but they could both be out of the playoffs as well.
The thing that scares me with Baltimore is a new offensive coordinator, and he's talking, or they're talking as a team, more about throwing the ball with Lamar and not so much running. And I'm like, anytime people or coaches or organizations try to make players something other than what they're really, really good at, you saw that with Russell Wilson last year in Denver. He didn't want to run as much. He didn't want to move around as much, wants to be a pocket quarterback. Dude, you're 5'10". You're not a pure pocket quarterback. So that scares me, but there's a lot of talent on that team. So who knows? But those decisions that get made in the front office like that, I don't know. So
I like Cincinnati. I'm going to go Baltimore, Pittsburgh, because I got to see Kenny Pickett and that team do it first before I put them over Baltimore right now, and then Cleveland in last. The South, I mean, that's another division that, I mean, a lot of people have Jacksonville being the number 1 seed. I just don't see it. I think they're good. I don't think they're like 13 win good. I think the West, obviously, Kansas City is the number 1 seed. No doubt there. I'm going to make my bold pick here is that I think the Broncos are going to be the number 2 team out of the West. I think the Chargers missed the playoffs, Raiders in last, and I got the Broncos. Scott's going to like this. I got the Broncos playoffs as a 7th seed.
It's so funny you say that because, we've been chatting about it for 2 years that we don't trust Staley. You look at that roster, you look at that team, you look at the quarterback, the wide receivers, the talent that's on that team. And what we should be arguing is whether they're going to win the division and be a 1 seed or, come in close second. And here we are saying maybe they come in 3rd.
It's like when Norv Turner was the coach, then they had all these pieces around them, right?
Absolutely.
Same thing. NFC, I'll go quickly through this. I like Philly in the East. No questions asked there. Dallas, Giants, almost said Redskins. Can't say that anymore. Washington. And then in the North, this is another division I just think is weird. Everyone loves Detroit. I don't know if I want to go there yet. I'll stay with Minnesota, although I don't love them either. Green Bay's rebuilding. Chicago, I don't know what to make out of them right now. And then in the South, I like New Orleans because it's basically process of elimination at that point.
There's not much else there. Yeah.
There's not much there. And in the West, again, I'll go San Francisco. I'm going to go the Rams, find a way to get back into the mix. And then Seahawks, I think Geno Smith and the Seahawks realized that, last year was a fluke. Then,
that is such a story to follow this year. I mean, Geno Smith basically had a 70% completion percentage last year. Can he really do that again? I don't want to say no, but I mean, anybody in the league trying to follow that up, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, especially you got San Francisco over there. They're so talented from just every corner of the field. It might be the most talented. Kansas City is always there because of Patrick Mahomes and, a handful of good players. Then they got everybody else, but San Fran is just so good every position. I don't even know. They must be working with a different salary cap because they just have studs everywhere. It's amazing to me. So,
how do you see things playing out this year?
I see the Jets in second in the East. I do see Buffalo. I mean, I'm with you until I see the king get knocked off the perch. I can't make that prediction. I will hope for it, but I can't make it. And I think Miami's loaded with talent, but there's the thing about concussions is that they don't suddenly stop. Your brain and that injury doesn't stop happening. So that scares me. I'm not rooting for Tua to get injured because especially that kind of injury. I mean, that's what, the long-term damage, who knows?
He can't be trusted.
Yeah, you just can't. And in the AFC, it's so loaded. If he just misses 2-3 games, that could be the difference. There's so many talented teams that could be the difference. I actually like Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh might win their division. I'm changing what I said on my own podcast. I really do think there's something going on there with Kenny Pickett. I think they found something. There's a Tom Brady kind of feel to him. You watch him and you're like, I don't see anything special. It's not a special arm. He's athletic, but not super fast. He's not overly big, but there's an it factor there with him. And then you throw in guys like George Pickens, and that defense is always good. I think Pittsburgh might end up winning that division. What else do we have here? I do think Jacksonville would win because I just think the rest of that division is so bad. In the NFC East, I actually think the Cowboys are going to win. Look, the Eagles I know it actually hurts me to even say it, but the Eagles lost a lot of key players from last year's Super Bowl team. And I shouldn't even say key players, but players in key positions. And they're filling them all with draft picks. It's a lot to ask for a championship team to fill important spots with rookies. Now, some of them will pan out, but inevitably some of them won't. So I still think they're a playoff team. I just think they take a little step back, and I think they get edged out by the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. I got Green Bay winning. I know. And I like Detroit. I like Detroit a lot, but until I see their defense be better, because that's what, especially, listen, this league is all built around quarterbacks, but when it comes down to like the last 3 weeks of the season and then the playoffs, you better have a decent defense. You know, you can look at Kansas City and say, well, they never have a good defense. No, they never have a good defense in the beginning of the season. And somehow Spagnuolo, by the end of the season, he figures out what his guys do well and what they don't do well. And he gets them to at least be competent and decent. Until I see that with Detroit, you know, I like a lot of things that's going on there. Until I see their defense. And I like Green Bay because I think Jordan Love's going to be fine. Not Aaron Rodgers, but I think he'll be fine. But you have 8 first-round draft picks on that defense. And there's one thing I know about football is that when guys think there's a deficiency on the other side of the ball, they tend to step up. So I think that defense is actually going to step up and do well. I can't go Minnesota, dude. They won all those close games. They won 11 out of 11 close games. That coin always flips the other direction sometimes. So I can't go there. And I'm with San Francisco. I'm with you on San Francisco in the West. I'm with you with New Orleans in the South.
There you go. I love that. I love that prediction in the North because I was thinking of like going with Chicago because just something different. You know, third year with Justin Fields, maybe they figure it out. They got some young pieces around him now, but
I think Chicago ends up in last. I don't see it with Justin Fields. I never did. I never see him come off his first read. It's first read or run. It's first read or maybe look around, can't find it and take off. He's an amazing athlete. And if that first read is open, he could sling it. I mean, he's got a strong arm and he'll get it there. But I just don't think you can go on that forever. What's a successful season though for them? They won 3 games last year. If they win 6, is that successful? You doubled your win total. That's definitely a move in the right direction. But I still think they come in last.
That's an Adam Gase accomplishment right there.
Yeah, that's how he would look at it.
But there we go, folks. So some bold predictions here from Pete Callesano. Of course, a Bump and Run. You can follow him on the Bump and Run podcast. They're on YouTube. They are on Google podcasts, right?
Google, Spotify, Apple, all that. Yeah,
it's a fantastic show that he and Scott do. Because it's one of those podcasts that you listen to just when you're driving and you just get lost in it because it's like, let me just let this wash over me. It's that good.
We try to have a lot of fun on there. You know, as much as we discuss things, we also try to joke around and laugh about it. Can't take yourself too seriously when you're talking about this stuff, especially when you're making these predictions. How many am I going to get right, Mike? I don't know.
Chances are, I think both of us will get the San Francisco one right. That's probably about it.
Probably right. That'll be the one we get wrong, right?
Hey, I didn't know that the Cardinals were going to go 16-1. Who knew?
Oh my God, they're gonna be so bad. They're gonna be so bad. Oh, I feel bad for those people out in Arizona.
Oh my God, that was terrible. Like, I need some bleeping killers in here. Like, oh.
rough, not good.
No, not good at all. Well, Pete, again, I want to thank you, man, for coming aboard here. It's gonna be a fun season. Can't wait to see this thing play out, and let's go Gang Green.
Anytime, man. I appreciate it. Go Jets. Let's do it one time for us, please. One time.
All you want is one.